Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, June 5th, 2026. I'm Ed Kabik, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, we've got a contest spotlight for the ARRL digital contest. Also, we're going to be hearing about CHU Canada's shortwave time station shutting down on June 22nd, 2026. Also, get a DXpedition spotlight for VJ2L, Lord Howe Island. The ARRL announces a product comparison tool. We'll talk about some MVARC Nets on the air, see what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, talk about upcoming contests, and take a look at interesting online radio content. As always, links to all reference content can be found in the show notes or at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. This weekend brings the 2026 edition of the ARRL Digital Contest. The stated objection of the contest is to exchange QSO information with other amateurs using any digital mode, with the exception of RTTY, in modes that support the exchange of a 4-digit Maidenhead grid square. The contest starts on 1800 UTC on Saturday, that's 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, and ends on 2359 UTC on Sunday, that's 7:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. Bands in play are the 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, and 6-meter bands, and the observation of established band plans is strongly encouraged. Operating categories are single operator, both low power and QRP, and multi-operator, low power and QRP. There are no high power categories. Single operator stations can work 24 of the 30 hours, and multi-operator stations can work the full 30 hours. Stations can contact any other station once per band. The exchange is the 4-digit Maidenhead grid square locator. From IQTH, that would be FM18. Any digital mode except RTTY can be used, but FT8 and FT4 are likely to be the most popular. For scoring, each QSO counts for 1 QSO point, plus an additional point for each 500 kilometers of distance between the centers of the 4-digit grid squares of 2 stations, rounded up to the next highest value. There are also club competition and team competition options. All logs must be submitted electronically in Cabrillo format within 7 days of the end of the contest. This promises to be a fun contest for the digital operator. For full rules and information, visit arrl.org/ARRL-digital-contest. Good luck.
CHU Canada. Coordinated Universal Time. 1 hour, 54 minutes.
1 heure, 54 minutes.
A familiar companion on the HF bands is about to sign off the air. CHU Canada, the time signal station that broadcasts time signals on 3.330 MHz, 7.850 MHz, and 14.670 MHz, is scheduled to shut down on June 22nd. CHU signal has been easily heard in the United States and around the world with its broadcasts of time announcements by voice and also via digital time codes. It is broadcast in upper sideband with a carrier reinserted to allow it to be received without an SSB radio using 3 atomic clocks located at the transmitter site, and the signals are highly accurate. In addition to providing the time, the signals were used by many to gauge ionospheric propagation conditions. Recently, HAMSci, an organization engaged in citizen science using amateur radio, released a statement on how they've been actively using the signals from CHU to further their research, formally asking the Canadian National Resource Council, or NRC, which operates CHU, to reverse their decision to close the station. The decision to end CHU broadcast follows the closing of Canada's Weather Radio Network on March 16th earlier this year. If the station does indeed stop broadcasting this month, it will be greatly missed. For more information, visit the links in the show notes.
CHU Canada, temps universel coordonné, 1 heure, 55 minutes.
1 hour, 55 minutes.
A team of 7 operators started their activation of Lord Howe Island on June 1st, with a focus on working as many DXCC entities and CQ zones as possible for the 2026 DX Marathon contest. Lord Howe Island is a volcanic remnant in the Tasman Sea between the east coast of Australia and Norfolk Island. The team will be focusing on 40 through 10 meters on CW, FT8, and single sideband, and they are live streaming via Clublog. As we went to press, the team had logged over 6,940 QSOs and we're working on a big pileup on 17-meter CW. They are scheduled to continue their operations until June 14th. More information about the DXpedition can be found at dx-world.net/VJ2L-Lord-Howe-Island, and their live stream can be found at clublog.org/livestream/VJ2L. Good luck. The American Radio Relay League, or ARRL, announced the release of their QST Product Review Database. It allows amateurs to compare various amateur radio products based upon metrics evaluated by the league. The site includes every lab-tested device featured in QST since 2012 and allows users to filter based on parameters most of interest to them. It also allows users to jump into the reviews of past issues of QST. To get full access to the data, an ARRL membership is required. The database can be accessed at compare.arrl.org. And now let's take a look at some MVARC Nets on the air. We have our 2-meter FM net on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. on the repeater, and that is immediately followed by the 2-meter digital net on Yaesu System Fusion's C4 FM on the same frequency. Then on the weekends, we have the MVARC Slow Speed CW Roundtable Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. on 3.565 megahertz CW, and that is followed by the MVARC Cherry Tree Net on Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. on 3.920 megahertz lower sideband, where we always have a great conversation, and you're always welcome to join us. And now let's take a look at what will be happening with DX. There will be a lot of DX on the air this week. Stations on the air include Kenya, French Polynesia, Juan Fernandez Island, Namibia, Palau, Bolivia, Bonaire, Market Reef, Mozambique, Lord Howe Island, Macau, Tanzania, Rwanda, St. Martin, and St. Kitts and Nevis. A calendar of DXpeditions can be found at NG3K's announced DX operations list at ng3k.com. And now let's take a look at a solar activity update. As we go to press, the Solar Flux Index, or SFI, was 148, and the estimated sunspot number was 157, with 8 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has stayed about the same. Solar activity has been at low levels in the last 24 hours. The geomagnetic field has been at quiet to unsettled levels in the last 24 hours, and the KP index reached 3 yesterday. The solar wind peaked at 481 kilometers per second. Solar activity is predicted to be at low levels with a chance of M-class flares and a slight chance of X-class flares today through Sunday. The geomagnetic field is forecast to be at active to severe storm levels today, and at quiet to active levels on Saturday, and quiet to unsettled levels on Sunday. The chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is at 5% today through Sunday. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are likely, with a predicted probability of 50% today through Sunday. R3 or greater blackouts are possible, with a 10% chance predicted today through Sunday. It remains a fantastic time for amateurs to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see delayer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, visit the NOAA DRAP page. And to see real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from Radio Sun data, visit prop.kc2g.com. And now let's take a look at some upcoming contests. This weekend brings the ARRL Digital Contest we spotlighted earlier, as well as the VK Shires Contest, the PODXS 070 Club 3-day weekend contest, the TISA Cup CW Contest, the Wake Up QRP Sprint, the UK SMG Summer Contest, the Kentucky QSO Party, the IARU Region 1 Field Day on CW, the RSGB National Field Day, and the Atlantic Canada QSO Party. As always, the K1 USN SSTs, the MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And now let's wrap things up with some interesting online radio content. As always, all the links for everything we're about to mention are in the show notes and also at our Substack at mvarc.substack.com. Michael KB9VBR discusses using the Challenger off-center fed vertical. Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW, discusses the solar storms coming our way this weekend. George, VK2AOE, does a little beaches on the air. Mike K8MRD tries out the tiny Gawant antenna. Dugbo, KD7RT, takes apart a Putikig Tumdi paddle to see what's inside. Dan, WD4DAN, installs the G7 UFO USB charging mod into his Eldercraft KX2. Walt, K4OGO, explores Virginia's Eastern Shore for DX and POTA. Linus, Lima Yankee 2 Hotel, builds his own battery pack and sees how it performs. Column M0MCX does a one-day build of a homebrew 15-meter Yagi. Stuart VE9CF talks about ionosons and the chirp they make on the HF bands. And Cyprian, Yankee Oscar 6 Delta X-Ray Echo, shows a shortened end-fed half-wave antenna. Well, that is it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2 Echo Charlie. Thanks, as always, for joining us. We hope you have a great week ahead. Best 73, and we look forward to seeing you next week.